What's going on, everyone? Welcome to another edition of the Vicktory Life Legacy Spotlight. Once again, I have a phenomenal guest in the building, a Hampton High, a Hampton University, a Hampton Parks and Rec, and a 757 legend. I have none other than my guy, Derock Croom, in the building, former quarterback standout. How you doing, Rock?
I'm good, man. How are you?
Oh, I'm blessed, man. This is a blessing to have you on, man. As you and I've talked about, online and on the phone, I am a fan. I grew up watching you, and so many standout Crabbers and so many standout Bethel Bruins and Ward Raiders.
Yeah, man.
You played quarterback at Hampton High during the Golden Era, and as I told you, jokingly but also seriously, you made that number 7 look sweet. And I know there are a lot of people that share my sentiments because, when I previewed this interview online on the several outlets, Facebook, Instagram, and different places, so many people jumped on the post and were like, hey, this guy is special. And we're going to talk about the reasons why you're special. But before we get into your legacy as a quarterback, let's take it back to where it all started, man. People know you as a mentor, a coach, a leader, a father, and a husband, but that's not who we start off to be.
No.
So with that being said, let's tell everybody about where it all started. Where'd you grow up and who how your parents and who influenced you?
My father was in the Air Force, and he got stationed here at Langley, and so his last duty station was at Langley Air Force Base, and we grew up on Settlers Landing Road, right by Darling Stadium. So that's where I grew up. A guy, T. Williams, Bubba Williams, Deion Walker, Melvin and Grady Lindsay, some of the Tillerys were on the street, the Tollivers, the Santafords. I mean, you can name them all. It was a great street. Settlers Landing was a great street. So grew up there. And that's when I actually started playing, sandlot football, at the churchyard. It was always the big churchyard. So we go there and play Burrow Hargroves. Those guys, they were the big guys. So we always wanted to play with them and, get in the game and get tackled. And then you run to the side because you're hurting. But, you get back. Once you get back, or once you finish wiping your tears a little bit on the side, you jump back in there. So that's where it all started. And then that's where I really started playing football. We ended up, first team I ever played for was the Tyler Tigers. Yep. And then Settlers Landing was going through some redevelopment, and then we moved. And then moving from Settlers Landing to Tide Mill, I thought we were going to Green Acres. Because Tide Mill was far away. I mean, it's not that far in the sense of mileage, but from growing up on Settlers Landing, coming to Tide Mill, it was totally different. And then started playing for the Eaton Eagles, and then played actually for Langley as well. So
wow,
mixed it up there. Played for Langley for a while, and then my last rec league year, which was intermediates, I played for Eaton. And then that was it. We went straight to JV.
That's so crazy you played for Eaton, man. I went to Eaton Middle School, played basketball, but they didn't have a football. When we got to middle school, we were the first 6th graders to ever enter middle school. Hampton City Schools, and I believe Newport News, the districts went to 6th, 7th, and 8th. Back in the day, it was 7th, 8th, and 9th, or something like that.
Well, that's what happened when my first year in junior high school. They had junior high football, but my first year there, they cut it out. So we were never able to play, junior high football. Some of the older guys were. And so that's when they allowed 8th graders to play JV. So I was in the 7th grade, still playing rec league. And then when we moved to 8th grade, then I was like, well, let's go ahead and play JV. So we were never able to play JV, although we wanted to. We used to, go to the games after school. When I was in elementary school, run up to Eaton, to see the JV games, the middle school games, but, we were not able to play.
You mentioned, Rock, you went on to JV, and I got to ask you this, man, you're around young men and young ladies all the time, and you're around players, you coach, and you're around Saturdays and Fridays, you're around athletes. And today's game, so when it comes to football, everybody wants to be a quarterback. And when it comes to basketball, everybody wants to be a point guard.
Shooting guard, point guard, and shooting guard.
Those two positions, specifically to your legacy spotlight, football quarterback is no joke. And we're going to talk about what all went into you playing quarterback. But did you know at that particular time in your life you were going to be a quarterback? You know, was that the position you wanted to do?
Actually, no. You know, I was, you know, back then the running back was the key position. And so, you know, I wanted to play running back, and that's what I started playing. But, you know, as you get older, you know, some people's speed increased, and it looked like mine started going backwards. So although I was still, you know, in my mind fast, you know, I mean, we had some guys that were faster. So I was like, well, look, you know, that ain't gonna be it for me. So I was like, look, I still want the ball in my hand. So I say right around that midget level, I was like, I'm gonna play quarterback, you know. So that's when you know, the light bulb turned on, because I wasn't fast, but I still want to be able to get out there and do some things. So I transitioned right then. Yeah.
You mentioned you went to JV. So you were you were zone, you went to Hampton High and you played JV. Talk about that experience, because again, you were part of, Hampton High's dynasty goes over decades.
Yeah.
And we can talk about some of the best players of all time at Hampton High alone, let alone Bethel and Phoebus and Kickingham, but specifically to Hampton High. I'm sure, like me growing up, you were familiar with their legacy, but you were part of a great run. But at the same time, you know, there's some people that run from going to play at Hampton. Because they're like, hey, you know, it's intense, the expectations. They rather beat Hampton. But for you, you went on and you played JV. How was it like when you first got there and you got on the team?
You know, I didn't know during that time that JV actually came out later than varsity. So, you know, when they was like, you know, trials, I was like, oh, okay. So, you know, at Hampton High, as you know, we're on the field at 5:45. So
I tell people that
at that age, you know, you didn't know. And see, back then it was like, you know, some of the older guys, they were getting rides, but I had to ride my bike. My mom wasn't getting up that early to take me to practice. So, you know, I jump on the bike with my equipment on and I'm gone. And so it wasn't until, you know, getting in practice, it was like, well, what you going out for? I said, JV. Well, you know, JV practice don't start for another couple of weeks. I'm like, okay, well, I'm here now. But, you know, going back to your question, you know, during that time, when I was in the 8th grade, the big guy coming out during that time was a guy named Robert Banks. Went to Notre Dame. And they had, man, they grown men. You know, you look at him and he was 6'8", man, playing linebacker.
It's crazy.
And I'm sitting back and I'm in awe, and especially the work ethic and just how they went about, you know, doing things. And you know, as well as I do, at Hampton High School, it's you know, you're in the regiment. You know, you know that, you know, one thing you're going to do is work hard each and every day, and try to get better. So during that time, man, I was just in awe of those guys, man, and how they, you know, practice and you know, the James Scapes, you know, the Franco Harrises, you know, those guys. And although they weren't doing that time frame, you know, Robert Banks and those guys, they were just huge. And so, you know, being that 8th grader, I was just trying to be a sponge, actually just trying to hold myself accountable. And, you know, during that time, you were on the proverbial meat squad. So you ain't get no reps. You just holding bags.
Hold on. For those listening, if you didn't play ball, meat squad at the time during the Hampton High era of when we played was the scout team. It's the scout team. You know, we got it. Some of these terms, meat squad. I've said that before. People like meat squad. That sounds derogatory. I said, it felt that way. No, it's okay.
The scout team. So all I did was hold bags. And, you know, and those guys coming around pulling, you know, you are a defensive end and you hold the bag and boom, next thing you know, you on the ground, you getting up and you got to do it again. But it was a great experience, man. I tell you, I will say that, you know, I think that made my, you know, love for the game a little more, especially for Hampton High School, just being out there, seeing how those guys and those older guys and how they went about it. And I wasn't the only one. You know, it was some guys in my senior class that was out there as well. A guy named Keith Powell, Randy Pearson, some of those guys,
Yes.
during that time that was out there with us, Marvin Dickerson,
Yeah.
during that time, Wesley Johnson. So all of us in the 8th grade was like, yeah, we're going to play JV. So we're going there as well. But Keith Powell actually had brothers out there too, playing D-Powell. He was out there playing during that time. So, I wasn't alone, but, we had a lot of guys in my senior class that went out there as well.
Yeah. Rock, I got to ask you this, man. I have some great guests on this Legacy Spotlight, and for the athletes, I always ask them, who did they model their game after? Who inspired them? Because, when I look at you, especially during that time, you were playing a position, again, whether it's the 70s, 80s, 90s, or now, the quarterback position is always and always will be held in a high regard. And at that time, you were playing the quarterback position where high schools, but colleges and the NFL, they were a little reluctant, because the intelligence that it involved. And, with so many guys like yourself, especially, during that time in the 80s, yes, Coach Smith, he was fine with it. But at the same time, there were some programs that, you're going to play receiver. You're going to you're going to play running back with DB. Was there anybody you looked at, above you in high school or college or in the pros that you were like, I admire him?
Not so much in the pros. And then in college, you had those option quarterbacks, and we used to play sandlot with the option. So you had your Turner Gills. I forget the one at Oklahoma. The Clemson used to run the option as well. So those guys, but the guy that I actually looked up to was at Hampton High School, a guy named Marco Stacy, who actually ended up going to, he went to Howard, but ended up transferring to Hampton University and winning the championship. So in the 8th grade, I was able to throw with that guy, man. And he was the one, that I would model my game after. And he had one of the tightest spirals that I ever saw. And so I'm like, I want to throw it just like him. So, seeing him and being out there and seeing how he worked, that was, in my mind, the guy that I wanted to be when I became, a starter. I wanted to be Marco Stacy.
Yeah, no, shout out to Marco Stacy, man.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate you mentioning him because, again, this is about letting people and reminding people about some of the other greats. So you get to Hampton, you eventually get to varsity. Let's talk about like the craft, okay? Because when you get to Hampton High, I'm gonna talk about myself. I was 13 in the 9th grade. My mom started me a little early. And I remember, at that time in the 80s and 90s and the 70s, now kids have a choice. My parents dropped me off. I was growing up on Shell Road, and I get to Hampton High, and I'm a basketball player. I'm 6'4", 6'5", and Coach Mitchell and those guys, Coach Gumpton and Gilly, he said, "You ain't playing basketball." I did, but they grabbed me, threw me in the weight room. Then they just give me some pads. And I remember you mentioned 5:30 in the morning, 5:45, you got to be on the field, and you out there twice a day. And you get home and you turn around. Sometimes it's best you just stayed there, right?
Yeah, you get you a sandwich and then get you about an hour's worth of sleep, and you back.
How was it when you got to varsity? Were you overwhelmed? Did you think, man, am I going to make it, or is this something where I'm going to be able to handle? How was it?
You think about all that, to be honest with you, man. Well, first of all, you don't want to let the class that became before you down. So that crab of mystique was alive and well and still is, because the guys before you set the standard. So you didn't want to let them down. So becoming a star is a big thing, and so you want to make sure, in our minds was, we want to win a state championship because we want to get those rings, jackets, and jerseys like everybody else did. And although I was a part of going to 3 state championships, it's not, to me, and this is just me, it doesn't count until you win it. So we wanted to win it for ourselves, but not so much being overwhelmed. just want to step up and make sure that you solidify a state championship, when you're, running the helm. So everything at Hampton High is regimented. So you're able to, maintain it, because you're put in situations at practice. Because to be honest with you, some of our second teams could go to other schools and start.
No question.
But they had to wait their turn, just like me, and guys after me. And I'll tell you one in particular that, was breathing down my back that I was scared. That was Rick Hunter. Rick Hunter came in, and the thing with Rick was just young. Had Rick been able to, grasp it, I would have been sitting and I would have been like, that's not good. But even, during that time, so it wasn't so much that, it was that you had so many athletes that were behind you that was pushing you. It was like, the second nature. So, not so much pressure.
Shout out to Rick Hunter. We're going to get to him in a second,
Yeah.
Man. He was, boy, Coach Smith had some great ones. Listen.
Yes,
Listen,
yes,
Marcus Higgins and
Yes,
Tyrod Taylor. Lord,
yeah.
we're going to get to that in a second, though, because that's a different segment. But
Yeah.
You talk about, the championships, the expectation, the practices, and the tone that was set. When you were there, I mentioned we were prepping for this interview, and I brought him up. We both started laughing. Coach Mann and Coach Mitchell. God rest his soul, Coach Mitchell.
Yeah. Coach
I
Mitchell.
had your teammate on here, Sherwood Jones.
Yeah.
And his older brother, Stan Jones.
Yeah.
And again, we played in different times, but the memories are universal. We
Yes.
can now talk about some of the things that went on, not giving all the secrets out there, but what was it like with the coaching staff? And then the personalities with Coach Mitchell, Coach Smith, Coach Mann, the other guys, Woodrow. I mean, talk about what it was like, being around those guys and Coach Mann and contact and all that stuff.
Oh man, you can't do that no more.
I know.
Stuff they used to do. I mean, when you look at it right now, it was like the dynamic duo for them, man, the Wonder Twins. And one was the bad guy, one was the bad cop, and one was the good cop. And whichever one, that day could have been the bad cop or the good cop. But I mean, they were so much of motivators. And Coach Mann would get in your ear and he said, "Hey, Croom, you're looking sorry today. You need to step your game up. You looked horrible." And I'm like, "Coach, come on, man. No, it's not going to work." And then Coach Mitchell would always tell you, if you don't, do this, and this, my lineman ain't going to block for you. So it was one of those things, they played off each other, but they were some of the best coaches, I think, hands down, that you could just be around, Now Woodrow and Gumpton, they weren't there when I was there. You had Coach Brower. During that time, Coach Brower, yes.
Coach Brower was there when I was there. I played for my basketball, and he was one of the assistants.
Brower was the JV coach, so you had those guys, but Coach Mitchell, Coach Mann, and Coach Smith, they were the staples. I think, some of the antics they had, man, I'll tell you one story. We were playing Bethel, and I was, I think I was in the 10th grade. Yeah. And so Bethel, was good, and that was the rivalry. And so those guys went and got some raw chicken. And, man, they're in the locker room, and, the pregame speech, you hyped up, man, and they say we're animals, man. They started eating raw chicken. And I'm in the back. I'm like, man, these guys are crazy. Long story short, talking to Coach Mann later, man, he was sick of this dog. that day, and they was, eating the chicken and throwing the chicken. I'm like, man, these guys are crazy. And then, the story with you with contact, I'm in the 9th grade. And so we're at, Darling Stadium, and the guys are getting ready to go out, and when you're younger, you're in the back because the starters are always
in the front.
Yeah. You're in the back and you're quiet. You don't say nothing. That ain't your place to say anything. You just happy to be on the bus, and be able to, put that.
Yeah. Yep.
So he was like, "Who wants some contact?" And I'm saying to myself, "Contact." Man, well, I tell you, the first time I seen the guy, and you can't do this nowadays, it's just, it's illegal. And he was slapping, who want contact, and they come up, "Yeah, I want some coaching." Bah! And I'm looking, and I'm right beside
Yes,
the
sir.
guy named Calvin Knight. And I'm looking at Knight, Knight looking at me, and I'm like, yo. And as you go out the door, it's like, one at a time, and we're in the back, and his hand ain't getting hit. I mean, it ain't like his hand is like getting tired or anything like that. It seemed like he wrapping up after you get to the guys, the 10th graders, because you go down the line. I'm like, yo, man, he getting to me. So I get up there and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm just shaking, man. I get mine and I'm going out the door. Yeah, man. But that was a different era, man. That was a different era. But those guys, man, they were master motivators, man.
Master motivators.
I will say that, and they were teachers. And I'm so thankful that they were a part of me, in my matriculation at Hampton High School, because I don't think I'd be, the person that I am without the motivation of Coach Smith, the motivation of Coach Mann and Coach Mitchell. And even to this day, I saw Coach Mann probably about a year ago, before the pandemic. And, we were out on the field or whatever. And he turned around and just slapped me in my chest. Bow, Croom. I'm like, Coach, man, I'm 50 years old, Coach. I'm saying that to myself, but
man.
And it's just one of those things, and you just give them, like you say, give them their praise and their flowers. But I will say this, without those guys, I don't think I would have been the player that I was at Hampton High, even after.
Yeah, no, I feel the same way. I share those sentiments. And I love all those guys, even when they were, especially the older I get, when I appreciate the wisdom and that way they pushed me to be a man.
Yeah.
Rock, I was prepping, I'm nostalgic when it comes to history. I get excited, I get chills, because I grew up watching it, and now, I go back and watch the games and I see something, even my old games. And I watched you play and your teammates growing up. Now that I can go back and watch it, I went and I saw you. Number one, you were a great leader. You had command in the huddle. You were poised. But also, I want to ask you to talk about your teammates, because in my mind, I've said this since I started the Legacy Spotlights, especially when I interview people from the Peninsula District or even across the water in the South Side. From the mid-'80s, early '80s, all the way to the early 2000s, I consider that the Peninsula District golden era.
Oh,
You're
man.
talking about
hands down.
Names for days, crowds, sellout crowds. Let's
down.
talk a little bit about, before we talk about the battles you had with Bethel and Phoebus and Warwick and all of that, and Kickintan, talk about some of your teammates and who you played with, guys. Because listen, you saw the videos I posted. For those watching, I know people were commenting. One guy said, and we're going to talk about the quarterback debate here in a second. One guy said, hands down, Derock Croom, best quarterback to ever come out the PD. And I said, boy, oh boy, that's a tough statement.
Debatable.
But before we talk, we'll talk about your quarterback play, your teammates, man. Just reflect on your teammates, because you don't get to those championship games without those guys.
Yeah. Those guys, man. I mean, even before I became the starter, but you got the Linwood Lumpkins, the Leslie Baileys, the Marcus Campbells. You can talk about the Michael Bullocks, the Craig Overtons, the Carl Porters, the Brian Porters, the Smitties. Then you come to the Will Jeters, Marvin Dickinsons, Calvin Knight, Wesley Johnson, Vernon Lee, Randy Pearson. I'm going down the line. Keith Powell, Sherwood, Keith Custis. Let me see, John Crutchfield, Drew Bergman. I mean, these are my teammates, my senior year that we're looking at, Mike Alexander, Anthony Wadrett, those guys.
Ooh, my man, shout out to Anthony.
Ike Billups, those guys, Kenny Owens, even Tony Hyman, Todd Summers. Now, those guys were younger, but they were still, in that era. I mean, you got the Winston guys, that they were, older than me. You got the Robbie Robinsons.
Yes.
Monster, shoot, I mean, I can go on and on, man. You know, one of my guys, he wasn't a starter, but he was my well, he had to drive. He was driving before, you know, I was. So he used to give me a ride to practice. Stacy Proctor, that was my guy. He was a very spiritual guy. So, you know, we won't listen in the rap. You know, in the morning, we would listen to we would listen to spirituals. You know, he had an old red Chevette, man, and that was my ride. So, you know, those guys, man, you know, all those teammates, and just like you say, you can't accomplish anything like that without those guys, man. You know, it wasn't just one guy; it was the whole gamut. You know, I do Derek Cooper. You know, I'm just going back and reliving in my mind, you know, those guys.
And we know you're not gonna get to everybody because
I mean, those are the ones, man, the staples. But
and you mentioned, I mean, some great, and shout out to Anthony Woodrett, man. I grew up on Shell Road, and he was my guy. He taught me so much. You know, you mentioned Leslie Bailey. Shout out to Leslie Bailey. Man, Leslie Bailey, Linwood Lumpkins, those guys, to me, when we were growing up, you guys were household names before social media.
Yeah, man. Marcus Campbell. You know, those guys, man, they were beasts. You know, Rodney Overton.
Oh, man.
You know, Robbie Robinson, Creighton, I forget Creighton's last name, Stuart Creighton. You know, I mean, Monacan, I mean, the Monacan game ran for over 200 yards and he was playing fullback. I mean, you know, it was just, man, like they say, factory, you know. Like, and those guys weren't starters at the beginning. They could have been somewhere else, but, you know, they just waited their turn and grinded out.
Yeah, you know, it's amazing. You named all those guys that played with you and you guys played together and won and lost together and created expectations and legacies that will last a lifetime.
Yeah.
And yet, if you look at today's player, you know, a lot of those guys now, we don't have the transfer portal in high school, but you can transfer.
Yeah.
It's a different time now because those guys waited. Todd Summers and all those guys behind you, they waited.
Man.
And that shows a lot about what the coaching staff and what you guys want to be a part of, which is still special now in 2021.
Yeah.
But speaking of special, what was also special was the PD, the Peninsula District. I was watching a game against Bethel when I was prepping for this interview, going back, looking at the tape. Then I went back and watched the game. You played, you and the Crab played against Kickintan, and Dwight Holly was out there.
Ooh,
and nobody.
You
yeah. Well, Dwight Holly was just on the show.
Psycho
was just on the show 2 weeks ago, and he mentioned that game, and I went back and watched it, and I kept pausing and saying, "This guy went here. This guy went there. This guy went here." But the PD, man, for those that don't remember, I know a lot of people do, but just take it back to how rough of a gauntlet it was every weekend.
Every weekend out. I mean, you know, Bethel, you had, you know, you had Jason Wallace, Carl Francis, you know, Rodney Burley, you know, you had William Beverly, you know, you had those guys. And then, you know, we'll go to Phoebus. You know, you had David Presley, you had Jonathan Wilson, you know, you had let me see, Ronnie Brown, you know, those monsters. Then you can go to Kickintan, you had Psycho, you had a seldom talked about quarterback that was awesome, Eric Williams.
Yes.
And then you had Sean Parker on that squad, you know. And then you can go to Minchfield, talk about Marcus Michael, you know, monster. Play with the Bears for a little bit. Then you go to Lafayette, you know, you had Tracy Harrod, Troy Jackson, who went to Maryland, was a bowling ball. We lost to Lafayette too, my senior.
Yeah. I saw that.
We lost too, but you know, that was, and then the Warwick, you know, you had the Ron Currys, you had the Wooten boys, you know. So I mean, every week it wasn't, you know, Minchfield, you had a guy named Dooley Tynes, Alvin Tynes was a monster at running back. And then Ferguson, you know, you had Lance. And they were, I want to say Ferguson during that time, Coach Baker was ahead of his time because he was running the spread offense then.
Yes, Lance he was.
The ball. Lance was throwing the ball 20, 30 times a game. And, you know, he had some receivers. So each week was a gauntlet. There was no, you can slack off on this one or slack off on that one. Nah, you had to bring it each week in the PE during that time.
And Rock, to your point, back then you had teams 8-1, 9-1 that weren't going to the playoffs.
Yeah, only one team was going to the playoffs. Now, my senior year, what they did was they did split it up because we went and Phoebus went. And actually Phoebus actually lost in the I want to say the semifinals or the finals, but that was the only time. But before then, it was only one person representing PD. You could go 9-1 and not make the playoffs, period. And so those games were grinding. Yeah. Grinding.
It was a great time. I mean, it was must see sports, must see competition. You guys, I mean, the Bethel Hampton matchup, you guys brought the best out of each. It was intense. It was intense. And the old Darling Stadium, I mean,
old rocking Darling.
Yeah, rocking. I mean, people hanging over the ledge and talking and chirping.
Yeah, jumping over the wall just to get the game. The bleachers were right by the end zone. So you get in the end zone, they right over top of you.
Yeah.
That was a golden era, man. That was
for sure. Rock, I do want to ask you this, and this is a tough question. Or maybe it's not. Okay. You are humility. You are humble. You keep it. You deflect to your teammates. Yeah. But take me back to a game, freshman, sophomore, junior, senior year when you were at Hampton High. Where you were like, as the kids say, now I was in my bag, or that was I couldn't. There was a game, or even a moment, junior year, senior. Tell me about a game you will always be like, hey, that was special.
I will say special. My senior year, myself and Lance at Ferguson were battling. Lance was throwing the ball. Now, mind you, during that time, it was the era of the downhill. We weren't throwing the ball quite as much, but Ferguson was airing it out. And so Lance was getting, a lot of accolades, and we played Ferguson. And that night, I was in my bag. I will say that's one of the culmination nights, senior year. I think I'm gonna say 19 for 21, 317.
Ooh.
Actually, yeah, it was a record. It was a record that night. But Lance was the one, that was throwing the ball. But coach let me air it out that night. So that was a special night. Didn't know it at the time. I was just slinging it, man. I was letting it go. I think I do have that tape. I'm not sure, but yeah, I want to say that was a record for the PD during that time. Now, since it's been broken, but during that time, I still got the article. But I think that right there. And then my senior year state championship game, I threw a $190. And that was a record at that time. But Ron Curry, the Messiah, as Coach Mann called him, broke that. But yeah, I want to say those two games, were the two that really stick out in my mind when I would say I was on my game that time. I was on my game.
Yeah, I love Coach Mann. He's got some great sayings. You mentioned Rock. You mentioned Ronald Curry. Yeah. And people don't know this, but you coached after your playing career. You coached. Yeah. And so many people know you in the Peninsula, really throughout the 7-5. You were just well known and well respected. But you mentioned Ronald Curry. And
Ron,
the older I got, the more I went back and I reflected on, man, if you start doing your due diligence, you're talking about in the Peninsula District alone, I'm not even going to include the whole region. Yeah. The quarterback play was special. Ooh. So you're talking about yourself, Aaron Brooks, Michael Vick, my cousin. Shout out to my cousin. Shout out. Tyrod Taylor.
Yes, sir.
Eric Hunter.
Yes.
But let's talk about some of the quarterbacks and the guys I just mentioned. I'm not going to go through all of them. I know there's more.
Plenty.
So I want to talk about Eric Hunter briefly because he was breathing down your back, and I felt like
as a 10th grader.
I felt like if he had Twitter and Instagram and Facebook now, because he was a parade All-American. He played football and basketball, won states in both.
Yes.
And I remember against TC Williams, he threw a touchdown pass to Hyman, and it was like, it was nothing.
Rope.
Just how good was he in your eyes as an evaluator, just as a quarterback?
Rick had it all, man. Rick had it all. Rick had speed. He had arm strength. He was a leader. And Rick had a chip on his shoulder.
Yes.
Rick had a chip on his shoulder, and I think during that time, that's what he needed. But Rick was, he was that dude, man, and a fierce competitor. But he was a nice guy, though. You know what I'm saying? A real good guy, a real good guy, man. So, coming in, he was raw when he first came in as a 10th grader, but you saw all the potential that he had, man. And then, seeing him being able to, utilize that, sophomore year doing drills and stuff like that, I'm like, yo, he's going to be a beast. And you saw that next year when he took the reins, he took him, man.
He did.
He took the reins, he took him. Went on to have a amazing career at Purdue. Freshman of the year, man.
Yes.
Freshman of the year. The Big Ten during that time, that was football.
Yes.
So it was the SEC, whoa, Nelly, CBS, of everybody, old school. But the Big Ten, that was football. That was grinding football. But man, amazing career, man. Amazing, athlete at a young age, when I saw him. So
now I'm gonna do a little segment. I didn't tell you about this, but I wanted your natural reaction. I'm gonna say a player's name or some of those quarterbacks I mentioned.
Okay.
And I just want your response. So I just want what first thing that comes to mind as far as their talents or gifts. First guy up, Aaron Brooks.
Oh, now if you look at Aaron, Aaron had one of the sweetest deliveries. It was just so elongated. His just stretch with it, man. It was beautiful. It was beautiful. He was a bad boy. Small, lanky, and just could sling it. Arm strength. Yeah. AB.
AB. Shout out to AB. Tyrod Taylor.
Oh, I call him the phenom. Ty, man, all I know is his dad, played Rodney, so we were there. But at a young age, Ty had the work ethic and the drive. And I would see him, his dad would have him out there and he'd be out there, he'd be ready to work. So I'm just saying the phenom, getting it in, man, at a young age. And he is so smart, just so smart, know the game. I just love his demeanor. He's so calm. He's so calm. When you see him, it's like, okay, I've already done this 100 times. So when it come at me, boom, I'm there.
His demeanor reminded me of you.
Yeah.
I seen Coach Smith talk to you and you was just looking and you were nodding and you just went back to the huddle.
Yeah. Ty, and to be honest with you, one of the first freshmen to ever get behind that center at Hampton High School. He got thrown in the fire. And when he got thrown in the fire, like they say, pressure busts pipes, but pressure also make diamonds.
No doubt.
So that's what it did. That guy right there, he's special.
Yeah. Ronald Curry.
Oh, as Coach Mann would say, the Messiah. It wasn't nothing he could do, man. Throwing the ball. It looked like he was a cheat code, man, doing football. that team, that you'll never see that. You'll never see that again.
Never.
You won't. He was the epitome of a high school quarterback / safety / kick returner, and just had it all. Had it all. He was, as Coach Mann say, the Messiah.
Taj Boyd.
Now, Taj at Phoebus, you could see his smarts. back there at Phoebus. And then that's when, Phoebus ain't never throw the ball until Taj got there.
Only when he was there.
Yeah. Phoebus, Coach D would get those running backs and they were horses,
Yeah.
so if you had 10 passes at Phoebus, you had 10 too many. Phoebus had 50 running plays. So Coach D, and when Taj got there, hey, that boy was slinging. And his matriculation too, through Phoebus and then going to Clemson and getting it done. Hey, he was a PD's finest as well, but he came from the South Side. He wasn't homegrown. He came
no, people don't know that. I know
he came from the South Side, so he wasn't homegrown, but we gonna embrace you. We still gonna embrace you because you played at Phoebus.
No doubt.
249. Shout out to 249.
Allen Iverson, aka Bubba Chuck.
Bubba Chuck, that's my guy. I'm partial to Bubba Chuck because I coached him.
You sure did.
We left we left Hampton and went there, but I will say he was the most athletic person that I've seen. I mean, he was a competitor, and what they didn't know, he could have played college safety, and true enough, and I don't say this lightly, he could have played in the league in football.
I agree.
If that was his passion, because the guy was amazing. He was an athlete, man. He was just an athlete in every sense of the word. Just like with Ron, quarterback, kick returner, punt returner, safety, corner. He could play it all. Great kid. Always wanted to win. The drive for him was, hey, I just want to go out and get it done. Yeah.
And you and Coach Inco, the Inkelmans brothers, you did a great job that year because those years you were there, one year we were #1 in the state. We were 9-0.
Yeah.
And y'all had to win to get into the playoffs. We were district champ. We were district champs. We were 9-0. We were #1 in the state.
Yeah.
And y'all had lost to Denby and Phoebus that year. Y'all were 7-2. And we were like, oh yeah, we're gonna crush y'all. And Chuck came in our huddle and went up to our quarterback, John Loganman. And Chuck was, people don't realize the mind games he played.
Yeah,
he went up to Loganman and he was like, I wear #10 and you wear #10. We're gonna see who's worthy of that number. Then my man Myron Newsom came over there and almost decided almost decided to riot. Myron said, "You gonna get out of here?" Just mushed them. And then I'm over there with Barry Hargraves and we pushing and shoving.
Yeah, Mike.
And I said, man, but Chuck was special, man. You're right. Everything you said, I agree. I used to tell people all the time, man. Y'all have no idea, man.
Yeah, he was special, man.
I was confused too because I said, man, what's Rock doing over there?
Well, crazy story. Miguel Incomenius and I played at Hampton University together. And so when I finished, Miguel's father, Daddy Inco, we called him, was coaching at Bethel. And so he asked me one day, I would go over their house and all the time. And he asked me, man, what you doing? Can you come help me coach? And I was like, all right, Inco, Mick coaching, I'll coach too. And so I caught a lot of flack from Coach Mann and Coach Mitchell wearing that green and gold. You know what I'm saying? But I always had a Hampton High t-shirt up under. So it was there. So
no, it's all love. It's all good. Yeah, I got two more quarterbacks I want to ask you about. Okay. Marcus Higgins. Biscuit.
Marcus, the biggest hands, his hands is huge. Marcus was the prototype, spread quarterback back there in the Western End. He was real silky smooth, man. When he run, it looked like he wasn't running fast at all, but you couldn't get a good shot on him. Mm-hmm. Had good instincts too, and know how to, move and maneuver. But yeah, Marcus was a great quarterback at Hampton High. I love to see him play. I love
Biscuit, man. That's my little bro, man. I felt like he's one of those guys we forget about because like you, he was a leader and a winner, and the bigger the game, the bigger he played. Last one, Michael Vick.
Mike Vick, it was, hey, I saw Mike Vick. I saw him one time when he was playing rec league, and it was this kid out here throwing this ball left-handed, and it was coming out like a rocket. And even at a young age, he had a quick release. And then fast forward, he got when he got in, B2 was the actual quarterback.
Yeah.
He moved B2, which is Marcellus Harris now, who's a council member.
Shout out to Marcellus. He was on the Legacy Spotlight too.
They moved him to receiver. And when Vic took them reins, man, that was it. And he was back there, he was doing, it was him and Ron. It was the Ron Carey, Michael Vick show. So if you didn't go see Ron Friday night, or you went to see Ron Friday night, you went to see Vic Saturday night, because he was doing it. We were coaching, I was coaching at Gloucester at that time. And, Gloucester wasn't that good. We weren't good. We're at Todd Stadium when we're playing, and Mike had Andre Harrison, had B2, and the dude broke a record, man. He was throwing them 7 routes, which is post corners now. I mean, back in the day, post corners now, 7 routes. Man, he was throwing them things on the rope. He was just dropping dimes. He single-handedly, I was like, I don't know what it is. And there's 3 people that you said has it, which were actually for Ty, Michael Vick, Allen, and Ron. I don't know what it is, but they have it.
Yes.
And you could see it. You could see it when they played. And you was like, yo, that boy gonna be special. And just like you say, he changed. And just like Allen changed basketball when he played, Michael Vick changed the NFL when he played. And I saw it.
No question. How blessed we were to see all those guys, including yourself,
I saw it.
Again, man, it's just, again, the golden era. And
man, it was.
And you were part of that, man. And then, you were. And a lot of people feel that way. Trust, go check that post out. But at the same time, your career didn't stop at Hampton. You went on to the other Hampton, other HU, as the Howard and Hampton folks get into it.
The real HU. Real HU.
So, you mentioned all the greats. You mentioned Robert Banks and how guys went here and went there. Leslie Bailey went to Virginia Tech. You stayed home. And I told you as we talked in scheduling this interview, my mom is a graduate of Hampton University. Back then it was called HI. And my dad went to Norfolk State. And I remember
Battle of the Bay.
I remember going to that. I remember going to all the games, man.
60,000 strong, man.
Yes.
30, 40, 50, 60,000 strong at those stadiums, man.
And I remember watching you play with the blue on and the silver, and you was out there looking sweet. Talk about why'd you choose Hampton and how it was playing for Hampton University. Because you were there doing some great runs.
I will say this, during the high school, I had a great high school career, but I wasn't highly recruited as a D1 athlete, which during that time you want to go to the UVAs, you wanted to go to the Techs, but the preferred walk-on status, and that wasn't what I wanted to get on the field. So took a couple of visits, and to be honest with you, a good friend of mine, Will Jeter, was All-American. Him and Marvin Dickinson, they were great. My grades weren't the best. They weren't the worst, but they weren't the best. And so my thing was, okay, I'm gonna go to a school. And so I went a couple of visits, and then I went on a visit to Hampton University. My host was a guy named Marcus Campbell. It's called him King Street. He stayed off Shell Road, King Street Cowboys. Yeah, shout out to Shell Road. And so when I got on that visit to Hampton University, when Sunday came, I'm like, where am I signing? This is the school I'm coming to, now. I mean, we went to a basketball game, the parties, just the camaraderie with the guys in the dorm. I just felt like this was the place for me. I hadn't seen, football. I would used to go to the Battle of the Bay, every now and then, but it wasn't like that. But man, when I went there, that was a wrap. That was a wrap. I went home and I'm like, I'm signing.
Yeah.
Signing day came, and I'm like, I'm signing. That's it.
And you still hold records at Hampton University.
Yeah.
You still, so what was some of your favorite moments? That you mentioned the social life, which I knew because again, I grew up in Hampton, but my mom worked there. Now, we would sneak on campus and go to those parties when I was in high school. A few of us. I'm not gonna name no names, man, but it was always, we had to park across the street because there was a big guy that worked the security. You couldn't go. You had to. He would stop you and look for that ID. Yep, he looked for that badge. So we had to
one thing about that, had you gave him a cheeseburger and a Pepsi, you'd been good.
Is that true?
Yeah, we'll talk. You let your campus have like, look, Officer Barnes, man, I got a couple of people in the back. Oh man, I can't do that here, man. Take this, oh, hey man, thank you, man. Thank you. Yeah. So,
but no, man, take us back, man. Playing at Hampton University, man. We know about the battle a bit. We know about the great fans, and but people that may have just gone for that may have missed out because I saw you. But talk about the matchups, the games, the conference games, some of your best times.
Oh man, I will say, the battles were Virginia State and Union. Virginia Union, one of my old teammates, Randy Pearson, that end up, he was all CIAA at Union. He played linebacker. Guy named William Beverly at Bethel, played corner. And then Carl Francis, he played defensive end. So, those were battles. We always battled Union and we always battled Virginia State. And then Norfolk, across the bay, that was the battle. But it was some great ones, man. I will say, freshman year, we ended up we won the Northern Division Championship. So there was a Northern Division and a Southern Division because Winston-Salem was in it, NC State, the schools in North Carolina. But we win the Northern Division Championship, and we played Winston-Salem for the CIAA Championship. End up losing that. Didn't get back my sophomore, junior year, but end up winning the Northern again my junior year, but didn't get back to the championship, but ended up having, winning seasons every year. So those battles that I remember were huge, the Virginia Unions, the Norfolk States and the Virginia States. So they were just, it was electric, even impact, it was just a family atmosphere. And it was fun because you're playing against guys that you played against in high school as well.
Yeah, that's so cool, man. Again, it's just an honor for me for this thing to come full circle because I remember those times. Just a few more questions because this has been a lot of fun, man. I do want to talk a little bit about your impact on people because when I premiered this interview, people were jumping on the page. That's my coach. He taught me so much. Tony Rutland and Melendez Bird. So people are like just talking about you coaching them, and also, as I talked about the connections, and my father always taught me about connections and how God puts people in your life and how you're connected. My nephew plays for Northampton Bruins, Derek Fisher. Shout out to my nephew. They had a scrimmage against Pecos and he's throwing touchdowns. My sister hit me up and was like, yo, you interviewing DeRocke Croom? I was like, yeah. And she was like, and I know him and my boyfriend and all the kids know you. You now run Hampton Parks and Rec.
Yeah. And
you still have your pulse in the community where it's to the point, as you and I joked about, your wife, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, people know you, man. Just talk about your role with Hampton Parks and Rec and all that.
Athletics coordinator for the city of Hampton. So we coordinate all athletics, youth and adult. And so with that, you come across a lot of guys that, I've coached before that are now coaches. And they, to be honest with you, the lifeblood of recreational sports are all these guys that give back to these kids in the community. I just facilitate, but it's the Cordells, and all the other coaches that actually give back to these kids. And I just facilitate, man, just make sure that, we maintain, the integrity of youth sports. one thing we got to get away from is that win at all costs.
Oh Lord.
And you see that in I'm not saying that's wrong, but when it comes to this youth thing, it has to be somewhere where it has to be regulated. And so that's what we try to do here in Parks and Recreation, make sure that we maintain the integrity of the youth sports, period. Yeah. So with that said, we try to make it so that the kids get the base, the fundamentals. Everything is fundamentals, and it's fun when you get the mentals.
No doubt, man. And you mentioned, when we were talking the other day about how you go in the community and your wife and everything, you wouldn't be the man you are without the family. Just talk a little bit about your wife and your family and what they mean to you and how important they are, man.
Family is everything, man. Family is everything. And when you first grow up, you have that that first sense, and then if you play team sports, that's your family. But then as you grow up and you have your own family, that's it. So just making sure I spend the quality time with my family, just doing that. I saw that from when my father and my mother was there. My father passed away early, but still having that, that foundation that he put instilled in me that I want to instill, in my family, wife, 2 boys and 2 girls. So they're older now, but we still have, that bonding time. So yeah.
Yeah, no, and tell her I said thank you for letting you jump on today, man. This has been great. Rock, I joke, but I mean with all sincerity, man. People, the Legacy Spotlight is successful because of my guests.
Man, I
have had some phenomenal men and women, cancer survivors, principals, superintendents, coaches. I had people in my DMs the last several months, which is amazing because I have a contingency of guests I'm still calling on and scheduling, saying, hey, man, you got to get DeRocke Croom on. I said, I'm working. Wow. He's on my list. Wow. You mean so much to so many people.
Wow, man. Wow.
You've inspired people with your play, your leadership. Wow. You're humble. People love playing against you, which says a lot about your character and your ability. And people love watching you play. They love what you do now, what you mean for the city of Hampton.
Wow.
With that being said, you are successful because of not only your God-given gifts, but your character, but the life lessons you've learned throughout the way. Yeah. We both are. We wouldn't be here if we weren't.
Yeah.
There's a young DeRocke Croom right now that's in Newport News or Hampton or up here in Northern Virginia. And he's getting up right now and he's doing the work, the footsteps, the drills. But there's also a young DeRocke Croom who's preparing to be a doctor. Or a general manager. Or there's a young lady who is working and doing the great things like your wife is, what she's doing when this, in the city of Hampton with the public school system. Talk about right now your final points for your Legacy Spotlight. What feedback and advice you want to give to everyone watching right now, even if they're not young, even if they're older? What kind of wisdom do you want to pass on them based on your life lessons on how to stay the course and remain successful no matter the adversity they face? What advice do you have?
Let's see. Life lessons. As you know, as we get older, adversity is going to take all shapes, forms, and sizes. I think with that adversity, you have to have in you that drive. I would say, the thing of it is now you can do anything that you want to do. You just got to put the work in. You got to block out. You got to have tunnel vision in your vision, in your scope, and all the naysayers. I will say the young right now have so many distractions, man. The social media, craze, and we didn't have that. We had the old, we didn't have the internet. We didn't have Twitter, Instagram, and stuff like that. So you got to block out that negative because everybody don't want to see you succeed. You got to have it in you to succeed, and you got to, understand, how to be successful. And then also asking for help. It's not a taboo thing to ask for help if you're going through something. So I would say, for anyone that's, right now just want to be successful is just stick to a plan, have goals, write down your goals, and then stick to those goals regardless of what it is. Adversity, again, is going to come at you either way, but you got to know how to handle that adversity and just fight through it. Yeah.
Well said, and thank you. I agree, man.
I
And
appreciate it, man.
you definitely have been a great guest, as I knew you would be. Thank
Man,
you again for jumping on.
man,
This has
I
been a blessing.
appreciate it. I do appreciate, having, me here. It was an honor when you did reach out. Cause I mean, I watch it and I'm like, wow, that's great. I don't think, that, when you said, man, giving me flowers during that time when we were just playing, man, we were just playing. And it's not that, I don't look back on those things and understand, I do look back on them and I'm like, wow, I did that, but it's nothing, that, you aspire to do. My thing is, man, I appreciate you having me on, man. It's been great, especially reminiscing about those times. Sometimes when I start talking about those guys, I think about moments and stuff like that, but man, I appreciate it, man. I really do.
Well, my followers and your followers and friends and family are appreciating this interview.
Yeah,
And
man. Yeah.
and we thank you again. Vicktory
I
Life
appreciate it.
does. And again, for those that want to see interviews like this, shameless
Yeah.
plug, please subscribe to the Vicktory Life YouTube channel.
Yeah.
Please, you as well, Rock. We got some great guests.
Will
And
do.
also make sure you keep track of all the great things if you're in the Hampton Roads or Hampton
Yeah,
area.
man.
Check out what
We got
Rock's
some
doing.
great things coming down. We got some great things coming in Hampton Parks and Recreation. Shameless plug. We are looking to do middle school football. So that's going to be something on the horizon that, I definitely talk to you about, a little bit later.
Website, where can they go to follow you or keep track of all that stuff?
Hampton.gov /athletics. That's our website, the city of Hampton. So if up there, if you want to give me a call, email, yeah, definitely do.
Well, thanks again, Rock. And again,
All
please,
right.
guys, to all his supporters and fans and friends and family, I say thank you for tuning in.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you to all the Vicktory Life people.
All right.
Thank you, Rock, for joining the Vicktory Life movement. And also, man, again, like I said, subscribe to this channel for great interviews. And my final point, like I say every episode, no matter where you go, no matter what you do, make sure you leave a positive impact and a great legacy. Thank you, man.
Exactly.
Appreciate you.